doing, Brian? This is Real and Raw with Lynn Serrano and the one and only
Brian is what it says.
Brian Kelm. How are you? I'm so glad you're here with me. We both rubbed our nose at the same time. That's because we're in the same room, right?
I'm hanging on my door. I'm trying to get work done.
You look like you were going to sneeze. So how are you doing today?
Got a lot to do and
little time to do it, right?
Yep. Feeling the groove today, so got to get going.
I hear you. So it's funny. You gave me homework last night. I'm like, really? No. And so I do have some stories about certain special people in my life. So, yeah. So favorite stories about liking others. So I think you should go first because you made me do homework.
Well, as we're finding out in the business world and whatnot is that nothing beats a great story, and what better way than to talk about likability and motion than instead of having it be a esoteric or conceptual, why not just share some stories? So I just came up with like 5 of them, that I wrote down, and it's like people that just come to mind. And so the first one for me is a business mentor that some of you may not know, but I started my business back in 1992 when I was 11 years old. And obviously it doesn't look like what it did today because I was only 11 and didn't know anything. And there's several things that Matt was his name. And he went on to other things like with excavating and home improvements and that kind of thing in my hometown of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. But I was in 8th grade and he was ready to graduate high school. And so he sold me some gear, like lighting and sound and that kind of thing. And he's like, I could have sold this to anybody for a lot more money, but I sold it to you because I know you'll use it in the best way. And so that was one of the most memorable things that anybody's ever done for me. And plus he made me feel special when I'm setting up scaffolding and lighting and low-lying fog and pyro and all these kinds of things for events, and being a roadie, paving the way for the business I didn't know that I started to love. And likability showed up that he was willing to take a chance on me. He was hard on me. There was no reward. There was no financial reward. It was all about experience and building trust and learning the trade. And so there's a lot embedded in that story. And I think that that's the difference between talking about likability from a conceptual or logical perspective. Things that are flushed out of stories that people can easily connect with are embedded in stories. So, I'll never forget him for doing that. And I haven't talked to him in many, many years, but I know that he left that imprint on my heart and on my life. And as I mentioned in previous podcasts and other shows, is that I never forget where I came from. It doesn't make any difference of the skills I have, the coaching, the development. I'll never forget by people that gave me a chance, by those that were hard on me, but also though that they wanted me to thrive. They wanted me to get after it in the world. So that's my number one, is a business mentor from when I was in 8th grade. His name was Matt.
I'm glad you started because now you invoked some other stories that so this is really cool. We might end up with more stories than that, but on that level where you started, I appreciate and remember my teacher. She went to Vassar, Miss Kirkland. She actually realized, like when I first started in performing arts there, I wanted to be stage manager, and she didn't give it to me. She gave it to a girl that I didn't really get along with her well, but she gave me as assistant stage manager. And I ended up doing everything because I just enjoyed the theater and everything like that. But then the other girl couldn't fall through. So I kind of got the position and then some. I got to be assistant stage manager and stuff, or assistant director and all sorts of stuff because of it. But the thing is that she realized I struggled at home. My dad was taking care of us, not my mom anymore, which my mom died 5 years ago today. So I'm kind of, it's one of those days. But but I had to do chores before I went to school. I had to go to school, walk all the way home, a half an hour walk. It was over 3 mile walk. And so I'd have to go home, do chores again. And then my teacher would come and pick me up so that I could go and practice at school. Like she promised my dad that that's where I was going and that she would bring me back. And I learned so much skills and so many things that I just enjoyed. She gave me an avenue of theater where, I could just not look at a movie, but I could appreciate it. I mean, the foundation of a lot of things I do and the structures, because she took time. And then she even put me in the speech and leadership class and things like that, which, those were for kids that were, at a certain level, and I thrived. And she just saw more in me than most people did at that time. So, and I had already, before I met her and before I went to high school, I already set the track of going to summer school 2 summers so I could graduate a year early. And it was kind of a regret because after I met her, I could have had another year spending time with her. So I only had two years of strict learning stuff that still stands with me today. So very
what do you
grateful
think are the
for that.
biggest things that remind you of her? Like, like boom, like in 5 seconds or less, she is this, and this.
She was very articulate. She was very caring, kind, but also very stern and very solid and should be very, very blunt, but with such a loving, it was all for the greater good. So those, so she's mad crazy on Twitter. I don't even go there. So I see her name pop up all the time and I don't even go to Twitter, but yeah, she's very, very.
I think that we're starting to see a pattern here, but I don't want to give away what that is. I mean, psychologically, I'm starting to see a pattern here just in our first set of stories. So we'll recap that at the end in terms of things that are coming through and are leaking through in both of our stories. So my second one is a buddy of mine. His name is Todd, and I met him back in 2006 or 7, and I didn't know him from anybody. Jamie and Ashley are a couple of mine that got married June 23rd of 07. In Madison, and as we were planning their wedding, I met him at a Panera Bread, and Todd was meeting there with somebody else, and I didn't know him from anybody. After Ashley and Jamie left, I was just finishing up, and we started talking, and all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, here coming up on 14 years later, we talk every month, and he's a 2-time Ironman, and he's in the medical clinical research type of business, and he's been doing that for over 25 years. And there's just I can't explain it in terms of what especially coffee shop, didn't know anybody. There was just a like-mindedness. We started talking, how you doing? And then all of a sudden, 14 years working on 14 years later, we got to know each other very well. So it's we challenge each other. It's just good to have a voice other than your own to bounce things off of, but then having somebody hold you stuff accountable. And one of the most fulfilling things is that when is likability turns into relationships, I think, is that you're not afraid to ask for coaching. Like, do you have any coaching for me is something I commonly say to people like that. And it's awesome because I know they're going to hold me to it. And I would let them down if I didn't do it. And so it's not like they would take it personal if I let them down, because they got no stake in the game. But to know that they got that out of me, that there's more for me, is a priceless gift.
Wow. My next story, and I was hoping she could be on here, but she has to go to work. But my next story is about a friend that I met when I almost came here to Billings. And this girl, she and I just intuitively connected. I met her through her mom, and we were like instant friends. And so the cool thing was she would call me and she'd tell me she was going to tell me something, and I'd tell her I knew beforehand and blah, blah, blah. So we were just totally connected. She would call me when she was in dark times, and I would do the same thing. And then it came to time when I almost died, and I had a full hysterectomy. And then after the hysterectomy, because I was going through menopause, hello. and I was also grateful that I lived. And my ex-husband decided to say that I shook my daughter and I ended up in the psych ward for Mother's Day. He was determined to keep me away from my kids, and he didn't even bring them up for me to see them. So I was all alone on Mother's Day with him promising I would never see my kids again. That was very difficult. But Jackie came along on Mother's Day, brought me a rose, and spent like 3 hours with me at the psych ward. And it was just super nice to know that I didn't have to be alone on Mother's Day. So that was pretty special. So then life goes, and she served our country for over 20 something years, and she had moved away. She lives like in Fargo, North Dakota, Moorhead area, and and so things happened, and there was a miscommunication slash she thought I had something to do with it, which I didn't. But her mom had passed away, and her mom was the bridge between me and her. Okay. And I went to her mom's funeral, and we were just finally reunited. And that was 4 years ago, I think it was. And we just we picked up where we left off. We just, the misunderstanding didn't even make a difference anymore. And whenever we get a chance to call and talk to each other, we talk, and it just, there's just some memories, and being there for her for when her mom passed away was very, very, her mom died after mine did. So, we were just like kindred spirits, and we just picked up. So, it was pretty special.
What does, after reacquainting and whatnot, what does that mean to you? You know what I mean? Where you can be present to what's going on, but moving on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we missed some years, but there's like no years missed, because we just knew that, we're deep friends like that, and it just, it was just complete, So
I think that's a powerful thing too, when it's is the fighting worth what they're, am I willing to put what's behind me versus bring the pain forward or bring the fighting forward? You know what I mean? Like, are you willing to put down your guns and,
and that's just it. She had a miscommunication. She thought I was the bridge of the problem, and I wasn't. Yeah. And then she never knew how to come back to it, and that was fine. And because I was fine, because I knew I never did nothing wrong. Yeah. But her mom tried to mend, and try to find us together, and it didn't happen. But after she passed, we reconnected. So it. And I always think things happen for a reason. I'm blessed that me being out of the equation, she could actually see that I had nothing to do with it. So I look at it as a true blessing, because she truly knows where we stand in our relationship. So
I think too is that when your hearts are aligned, and people have maturity, they get clarity, they go on. If there's a gaping hole in somebody's heart where somebody's missing, they just whatever the miscommunication was just fizzles away, because there's more to that relationship than just that upset, right? Yeah. It's like, not only do they have to overcome the upset, but also what is missing from their life, that by cleaning it up or saying what there is to say, is that person would likely come back in, you know, and I think that regardless of whose fault it was or whose miscommunication, it really shouldn't matter, because what's the outcome? What's the goal that you want?
Right.
And if that person is that you want to have them back in your life, you should be willing to do what it takes, you know, because it's, and I don't want to, like, around the holidays, one of the things that upsets me the most is when people will pay any amount of money for the latest technology gadget or whatever, and they'll buy that for somebody that they have an upset with. They'll spend any amount of money on them, but they will not be willing to do the one thing that could make their relationship entirely different. And that is, Pitters here, is to complete that relationship, is to walk through coals, or walk over coals, so to speak, have a difficult conversation, but at the end, at least you've said your piece. At least you've said, you know, and it all has to be from a place of where you don't know where it's going to go. You know, you may want them in their life, but the pain is still there for them, or maybe they don't want you in their life, but at least you said what there was. So, you know, because obviously if this is going on and on and on, there's a lot of layers to it. But the worst that it could be is that they don't talk to you anymore. Well, how is it any different than the present moment? Right.
Right.
It can't hurt. I mean, especially if they are, as unfortunate as it is, receiving your gift, right? They'll gladly receive your gift, but they won't engage with you in a conversation. It's tough. Don't get me wrong, but what, you know, well, the outcome versus what you have to get there, right? Well, so
that's the thing, though, is I decided that, you know, her mom meant a lot to me. Mm-hmm. I knew that I was going to go to the funeral, and yet I knew that for whatever reason, she just has, you know, whatever. And I was like, you know, I know how it feels to lose my mom. I'm like, I just need to be there for her. And if she wants me or not, I'm not pushing myself on her, but, you know, I'm going to show up for her mom. I'm going to show respect and love. And I truly didn't know where the relationship was going to go from there. But we've got this invisible connection that it's just pure love. I mean, like, it's pure love. And I'm just grateful that, you know, that one. Hi, Larry. I'm just glad that won out at the end, and that, you know, and like she tries to apologize sometimes. I'm like, no need to apologize. You know, have lives, things happen.
There's a couple lessons that came out of this, is that if you are the one to take ownership of everything in your world, I mean, there's books upon books, Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, many thought leaders. If you're willing to take ownership of your relationships under any circumstances, regardless if you're at fault or whatever, that shouldn't matter. The only thing that should matter is it where you want it to be? And if it's not, well, then do something about it. And don't expect, hi, Tammy, thanks for being here. If it is not where you want it to be, then you got work to do. And what's
up, Jerry?
I get
the honor to have Jerry on my show on Friday, and I laugh out loud. So
I love he calls us duo. He just made it up for us. So thank you.
I know, right? I love it.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, we're like yin and yang or something. I don't like saying that, but we compliment each other. It works well. So your story next. Oh, I lost Brian for a minute. Oh boy. So we're talking about stories of liking other people, and I'm sure he'll be right back. And so I just shared a story about a friend of mine who became estranged, and then we found each other again. And there, I found my friend again. I don't know what happened. I was recanting what we were talking about. And Brian, I talked about a friend, our teacher or mentor of mine, and he talked about one of his friends and mentors that gave him equipment that became his passion and theater and stuff. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's one of those things that it's like, I've never found a moment in my life. Now it's taken a near-death experience and my dad passing away unexpectedly to get me in the frame of mind that it's like, hey, there is no, what is the end goal, right? Do I want this person in my life with love, transparency, vulnerability, or do I not? It's not all these like little things that get in the way, right? And that is, I think, some of the most best information to share with everybody is that, hey, get rid of the nonsense, what you said, they said. Ask yourself this question: do I want them in my life or not? And that's not a maybe. It's a yes or no, you know? And we spend too much of this up here not doing enough to deepen relationships or to deal with drama, you know, instead of working with those people that we want to have in our life, right? And deepening that, you know, like we could spend an entire lifetime working on deepening relationships with everybody in our world. So then why are we contending with outside influences and drama?
Yeah.
You know, if they would just do this, then I would do that. No. Take the ownership, take the leadership, What's the
Right.
worst that could happen? You have to do some work. Well, that's what life's all
Yeah.
about.
My next story is really good if you want me to tell you what it has
Absolutely.
all that. Okay. But then you're next. You got two. Okay. This one happens to be a friend of mine that he's gone again.
No, I
Oh,
was here. I just switched my camera.
I was like, don't scare me like that.
No.
So this one has to do with well, it's vulnerability time, right?
Lynn at her finest, everyone.
Okay, so um where this story picks up with my friend Liz is that we have a mutual friend that was my friend for 20 years, and we were best friends, and we don't talk anymore, me and her, but they live in New York, I live in Montana, and I've gone back and visited her and stuff, and there was different times that, because we were mutual friends with this person, there was times where there was friction between her and I. And there was frictions because of the person I was hanging out with, and this is going to get juicy, but I'm going to keep it on as juicy as I can because it'll be forever on here. But the point was too is I was hanging out with somebody that I considered a good guy friend, and just a good friend. Like, you're my friend, Brian. I mean, you're my friend, right? Hanging out with him, and and I knew she was friends with him too. And I'd say, come on, come hang out. And it was all misperception wrong. And I mean, I'm not putting trash out here or whatever, but long story short was, she couldn't understand if I'm hanging out with this guy and I have interest in him, and I didn't have no interest, except we're best buddies. I'd hug him, I'd give him a kiss, we're best buddies, right? But that's not how she perceived it. And I'm asking, I want you to come out Friday night, Saturday night to hang out with us. If I had any other intentions, I wouldn't be asking you to hang out with us. And that was the perception she was getting. And so Mark's trying to call me. Close that out. And so I forget I have a show. And so
put on your phone on airplane mode. Mode.
No, that was me having Facebook on live stream in the back here on my computer. Anyways, so the story, the long version of this story is that when I would visit her, I mean, I just love this person. I mean, she is so giving. She is so caring. She welcomes everybody at her house, and she feeds them Puerto Rican food. And it's just a place to hang out. I mean, just love spending time with her. And we actually sat down and we started putting notes together and noticing the way she perceived it, the way I perceived it, and the way it actually was in different things. And we realized at the end of the day, when I go back to New York, I could go anywhere, do whatever I want, but I just choose to go to her house, hang out on her porch, hang out on her driveway, just hang out with her and eat some good food too, but just hang out with her and her grandson and her daughter. I mean, it's like my safe haven, and it's not the best neighborhood, but it's still my safe haven. Like, I love spending time with her. It means a lot. And the bottom line is we just realized there was always so much drama around everything else, chaos. And yet she and I are two peas in a pod. We just have the same heart, the same mindset, and we just love being. I mean, we just love being, and we let go all the friction that, by all means, everybody else would hope this friction, we wouldn't talk. But we did the right thing. We actually talked, cleared the air, seen the way it was perceived, and truly what it is. So it's only made, the last 2 times I've been down there, it's only made our relationship even stronger, which again, it's the sitting down and appreciating what you got in a friendship.
Yeah, I'm just jotting down some notes here. I'm not looking away on purpose. I'm just jotting down notes and stuff,
So that's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell with not going into other details, but it truly is nice to say, wait a second. And I'm like, how would that be if I do this? She goes, I know, I thought it was crazy. I'm like, well, there you go.
Well, and you bring up a good point, and you frame it in such a way that is not one of my hot buttons, but it's a very fascinating thing for me is that when conflict or struggle exists, now, like through communication, when struggle or conflict exists, what is the piece of indifference? You know what I mean? Like, one person has this view, another person has this view, and it's just like, it's not the views that get in the way, it's the separation of what is misunderstanding.
Right. It's the perception of hey, Carrie, so
Carrie's
glad you're
here.
here. It like I said, I think what happens is we think we know the story from this angle,
Right.
and then we're too afraid. Oh, I love Carrie. Carrie and I have had some deep conversations about miscommunications or perception things. And that's what I love is when you can sit there with a friend and you can tell the story, recant the story again, but see it from a different angle and see it from what is the little piece of material that we're missing that we haven't misconstrued, and the perceptions of things. So yeah, Carrie, I appreciate you being here because you were with me 5 years ago, and that's still near and dear to my heart. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, and there's two things to keep in mind that I take away from that. Number one is giving that person time. You make the time in this space for both of you to just interact, right?
Yeah.
As uncomfortable as it might be, a lot of people will not be a part of that conversation because of how they feel, right?
Right.
But if anything is going to get resolved, it takes two people. It takes both sides being heard, not just one side, and I'm going to disregard the other. Well, okay. Well, you're not being fair to yourself, and you're being a disservice to that other person.
Can I tell another quick story real quick that I think is pertinent?
Let me share another piece. Is that so it's for everybody to the time you allocate to each person, where you can authentically show up as you are, you can go through it, but you're not trying to, number one, win anybody over to your point of view. Number two is you're looking for the empathy part. You're looking for the part that you don't get. And then the second part is, and I've shared this in several of our other episodes, is when somebody feels like they're heard. That the way that should show up to the other person is they don't need to say anything. They just need to listen and feel with their heart. And when that happens, a lot of things get resolved just in that moment, because nobody's trying to justify themselves or make blame or excuses or any of that nonsense. When a person feels like they're heard and understood, it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, it's just like, and Carrie, let me know if I can say things here on behalf of our relationship. If I can't, I won't. But I think you'll give me permission to say this. I used to just say hi to Carrie all the time in school. And we became friends. We weren't close friends or real friends in high school. We just in passing, I would always smile and say hi. And over the years after our reunion, and we had Facebook and stuff, and we've been friends. She's like saying, absolutely good. I thank you. I'm being vulnerable and you're part of my story. But she would call me and be like, I don't understand how you can be happy, Lynn, when you were having a miserable life growing up. And I'm like, but that's because I choose that. And we've had some really heart-to-heart conversations, but I think I respect her for having vulnerability to tell me that she didn't really like it when I said hi to her. She's like, who the hell is she saying hi to me? I mean, she could be vulnerable and said, Lynn, I just didn't get why you'd be happy or why you'd say, yeah, she says, yep. She says, yep. She's just like, I just don't get you. I mean, like, I just didn't understand it. And so I'm like, because I can either choose to be angry and miserable, or I can just have love and laughter. And that's what I choose. And, I'm just grateful that in her darkest times, or when she didn't, she felt alone or anything, she'd reach out to me and I'd be there for her. And yet I couldn't understand where she was and she couldn't understand where I was. But one thing we did understand is we were attracted to each other, and we made our friendship be it was your insecurities, but I had my insecurities, so it canceled both insecurities out, but it connected us because we could relate on that level, wouldn't you say, Brian? And so it was the I never felt any better than you did, and I just loved you. I just love you.
There's a big lesson in there, and it's true right here. I mean, like that's the power of stories right there, to really bring out likability, right? Of which, especially, most people don't talk about likability from a negative point of view or something that is not going well in life, right? They talk about the good stuff, but also, though, this is a classic case right here, is that you led the way. right? Kind of like somebody that is just being themselves and they're boisterous, they're fun, they're maybe a little, different, if you will, right? But they just have a zest for life and bringing it out of others, and they will lead that way, right? What you did right here is that you led the way for her to feel, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, but then also though, I don't know Carrie's story or whatever, but let's just say she's dealing with some stuff in life, right? And it's like, holy crap, like what I'm dealing with isn't like that, like in terms of a spectrum of the things that could be happening in life to me. And I don't feel as good as she does, and she should not feel that way, right? So I think it's kind of like waiting for somebody to say hi to somebody versus you doing it first,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
I think Dale Carnegie talks about that in like, what is it? You can have more friends. You can have more friends in 2 months if you become interested in other people versus them becoming interested in you, So it just goes to show us that if you're willing to take ownership of things and you're willing to choose a different path, that makes it available for other people. If they really want to take it on, that's possible for them too.
Well, like Carrie has here, she goes, "Oh, yes." And I love you said the operative word here. We were good pretenders. Yeah. We don't need to be good pretenders, my friend. No. We just need to be ourselves. And the people that love you and always love you will, the cream goes up to the top. They will be right there. And the rest were floater. They're duds. They're the ones that you don't need. And I love that I've been able to fill that gap with many people in my past that misunderstood me, didn't know me, and, gave me a chance, because there's some people like Carrie would think that just didn't value me. They just had their opinions. And I've learned I can't change people's opinions of me, and exactly. Nor am I going to try.
Exactly.
And so, I love when she calls me, she has a coon and says, "I don't know where you get the nerve to be so out there and so whatever." And she goes, "But I love it." She goes, "It gravitates me, but I can't do that." I'm like, "Carrie, you could do that. You can do that. I know you can. We should do a show for a reunion for school or something." But seriously, I got out of my way. You got to get out of your way. And Carrie, you're such a beautiful person. And as long as I have bated breath, I'm going to pour that love into you and let you know that I don't hold anything. Like, she goes, "Boy, you should be mad at me because I was rude to you." I'm like, no, we were young. We were kids. We were like, I just love her. When my mom passed away 5 years ago today, I mean, she let me stay at her house and just chill out with her. And it was just, those things just mean the world to me. So,
well, and yeah. As you were talking, it reminds me of why I've never went to a high school reunion.
I had high school reunion because I graduated a year early, and I knew my classmates, but I didn't know them. So when I went to the 20-year reunion, I started taking pictures. Nobody was taking pictures. So I would hide, and I was taking selfies before people knew what were selfies back in 2003, I'll have you know. And so I took all these pictures with everybody, and there I am. And if I hadn't taken the lens and taken pictures at that reunion, I probably wouldn't have stayed. I felt very lost and alone there. So, but I stayed. So I was there anyway. So I was proud of myself for that.
Yeah, it's it just, if somebody's going to judge me, go right ahead. But I'm not going to give you the opportunity. If you want to hold on to things that happened 20 years ago or more, go ahead.
Yeah,
really, but I'm not losing any sleep over it.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the thing is that, no, I'm still going to be kind, and I'm still going to be whatever. And, I'm the epitome of, mean people. I'm an epitome of, I love being Pollyanna. I'll admit it. I will find the nicest thing about somebody, and I will focus on that. I'm not naive. I know all the other shit. But I choose to focus on what I love about that person, because I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm just saying I love that person for that. And I will let everything else go, because I don't want to focus on all the other debris. I want to focus on what I can that's good.
Well, so that's another dimension of what makes our relationship and our connection so great, because it is opposite. I am not Pollyanna. I'm direct. I'm real. If I don't care for you, I won't surround myself around you. And I'm
Hey,
not going to
I'm
try to
real
find that,
too.
you know?
I'm real too. Just God makes me stand in front of those that choose to be whatever, because as long as I'm shining light to their one good side, it's going to ripple and tear down all those evil sides of them. That's my mission
Look
in
at
life.
everybody, look at Lynn's face, you know, when she
Yeah,
says that. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Tammy said we've all lived life and done things in our past. No one should judge anyone. Oh, but that goes against the human condition, right?
Right,
That goes against the human condition, and you know, yeah, there's not much more I could say about that. That what we want people not to do is exactly what we're wired to do,
right.
you know, and
So I told plenty of stories, and here I was worried I didn't do my homework. I'm like, I don't like doing this.
we're
I
not
don't
done
know.
yet. We're not done yet.
Hey, but I told more stories than you have.
It doesn't
So
matter. There's no measurement here.
okay, go.
But your third story was just one story. That's not like four stories. That's just one story. You can't weave stories in.
I,
No.
I told 3 stories already.
Well, we're
My
not
teeth.
judging here. Yeah,
Okay.
we're not judging. So my third one is a groom of mine and a friend. Robert is his name, and he lives with his wife right outside of Milwaukee, and he's a sales guy. And I remember when I met them because they got married July 28th of 2007. So I remember meeting them at their house, and things were a lot different, you know, back in 2007. And I remember like his dad was a Hollywood actor, and so was his mom. His mom actually dated Frank Sinatra for a period of time, and
She did
so
what?
yeah, it was his mom dated Frank Sinatra for a period of time, and that's when I went back to school for acting and theater and performing arts for another partial degree. And I remember the first time I was there sitting on their couch, and he was challenging me for their wedding, like some serious questions that could have been ball busting, whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is cool, you know, because it's like I know what I'm worth, I know what I'm all about, and I know what I can help deliver. And I didn't back down at all. And I even challenged him a little bit. Now, this was the first time we ever met, right? So we're not even working together legally. And I'll never forget that experience because I held my own. And, you know, him being a sales guy and all of that made a real huge difference. And it was awesome because it paved the way for respect and fun and just that, you know, if you know what you're doing and you're showing up in such a way that you're sure of yourself and your beliefs and whatnot, there's nobody going to rattle that, you know. And I try to get together with him and his wife every year or so, and we'll meet for breakfast or whatever, and we'll razz each other. And you know, his wife makes fun of him for razzing me, but I can give it back too, and it's all in good fun. And he grew up, you know, with two parents that were actors in performing arts and in all of that world in Hollywood. And his mom said something to me very profound. She goes, "Don't go out to Hollywood. Don't do that." She goes, "What you may see on TV is a lot different than what it is in terms of like the limelight and all of that, you know." And you know, I never wanted to become a Hollywood actor, but she goes, "If you ever have plans of thinking about doing that," she goes, "just don't," you know. And I don't talk to, you know, I talk to them a couple times a year and acknowledge them for their birthdays, anniversaries, and other things, and or when they come to mind. But I got their, you know, obviously their cell phone numbers, and we'll talk, you know, whenever they come to mind or whatever. But it's just that harmony, and we can challenge each other, we can just be ourselves, and we can love each other for who we are. And I
Love
think
it.
that we need that, right? If everybody is just like us, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you're the smartest one in the room, you need new friends or you need to go to a different room, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it's necessary for us to have that, for us to reach our potential and to really know inside of our heart why we do what we do. And if we're in business, why do we serve people the way we do, you know? And if we don't serve people, why don't we serve that group of people, you know? So great people, Robert and Lynn, love them. Love them.
Sweet. That's great. Okay. You tell another story.
Sure. So this, there's a lot of customers in here or people that are through business. This next one is Debbie is her name, and she's a mother of a bride, and her daughter got married in 2016, and she's the mother of 4 daughters. And this was her oldest daughter. Okay. So the first one out of the gate to get married. And I remember meeting with her and her daughter, Becky, in my hometown, for the first interaction and gathering. And it was awesome. I could tell that Debbie wanted to have a vested interest in her daughter's wedding. Now, I'm not saying that she was there to control and dominate. She just wanted to be involved, right? And she did that in a lot of ways, right? She owns a business herself, right? And so she's responsible for a lot. She's got 4 daughters, the sentimental value of her oldest daughter getting married. And I mean, she made all of the wedding dresses, every single one of them for all the bridesmaids for the wedding, okay, herself. And they were beautiful. And before the wedding, months before the wedding, she reached out to me and she had this laundry list email. Like this thing was huge. Okay. And because shortly after her daughter's wedding, her daughter and future son-in-law were standing up in another wedding. Okay. And that was within like 2 weeks after their own. And so there was those responsibilities as well. And I haven't talked to Debbie in a while, at that time when she messaged me, and I could tell that she was just stressed. I could tell that there was a lot of things that were like Velcro, that was just so close for her. And so I said, let's talk on the phone. Does that work for you? And she goes, yeah. And I said, let's go through every one of these items on your email one by one by one. And at the very end, I asked her this question. I've shared this with hundreds of prospective customers, even customers right now. I said, is Becky getting married tomorrow? She goes, no. I said, how about next week? No. How about next month? No. How about the next 3 months? No. I said, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be great. And I said, so how do you feel? And she goes, well, I'm not going to go rip my husband's head off. I mean, her husband was making, he was the woodworking guy. So he was making elements of props, like for the guest favors and for the beautiful moss tree that they had for the card box. He made all that stuff, right, with the help of the groom. And so he was out in his shop while she was dealing with stuff inside. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what that story tells me about likability is a lot of things. Number one is that to be of service, to help people no matter what, right? And if people trust you, and here's the thing is that if you're in business, there might be there a lot of times there's stuff that doesn't pertain to you, but you have the expertise and it's in the customer's best interest for you to help, right? It could be coaching, it could be psychology, it could be, whatever outside of the actual day, but it is a part of the day. It's a part of the whole experience. And you never know what you're going to run into from the day that my services are reserved until they're married. You can't say, oh no, I'm not going to do that. Or that's not what I signed up for. No, in their eyes, when you're on the dotted line, that's all that matters. Right. And so for Debbie, it was to have a voice, for her to have somebody to listen, and for her to just have a person that cared about her daughter's wedding as much, if not more than she did. And I love Debbie, Dave, and their family. And they're just kindred spirits. And whenever we get a chance to catch up, we always do. And it's always fun. So, yeah.
Now you make me be vulnerable again. And now I'm going to talk about Jules, which you know is Julie. And so Jules, I actually met when I was doing my lingerie parties. I met her before my brother came to town. And then my brother moved and stayed in our town, and she met my brother. And my brother Mark, who has passed away, he's a good storyteller. He's a musician. He was a character. And what I loved is and then 5 years ago, my brother Mark and I were trying to work with my mom as far as her health care and things. I mean, she was supposed to be fine, but she ended up sepsis. So she's supposed to live. And so things changed. But, and it was just one of those things where we worked for the greater good. He wasn't able to get there to be at my mom's bedside like I was. Yeah. That was 5 years ago is when all the East Coast was buried with so much snow that they actually, the airports, I mean, like they shut everything down because the snow was so bad. And yet I was able to go from Seattle all the way to Syracuse with all through the night and got there, whatever, but he couldn't get there. Mm-hmm. And needless to say, he's with her now, but he died the year after she did. But, it's the thing with Jules, when my brother passed away, she was just so kind. I mean, like my family's just all over the place as far as our relationships and different things, death kind of triggers different things in everybody and stuff. And, she weathered the storm in such a way of bringing people together and honoring my brother and honoring and appreciating all the personalities we have in my family, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so what I love about her is, her and my brother were like, that was his soulmate. I mean, my brother had been married quite a few times. We'll leave it at that, and blah, blah, blah. He's 57. But, it was one of those things where she saw people for where they were and their grief, let alone her own grief. And she just loves all of us in the family. And she's just such a caring person. And I'm just thankful that she never got into this said, he said, none of that stuff. She carried on what my brother believed. And then the chaos that we lived in, it was so much easier. It is, I think that's why I'm really stern, like I said, Brian, about you may not like somebody I hang out with per se, not that you don't, but I'm just saying, or whatever. But I really have learned to concentrate on the good in that person, because the rest, I have to let it be a noise that I let go, because that was how my own family life was. I mean, I just, you've got to compartmentalize. Wow, I was able to say that today. Don't make me say it again. But anyways, you should be able to see what's of value and what's not, and what's the debris of all the anger and all the sadness and all these things should wither away, and the focus point should be the good times, and not the bad times. And I would get to see Jules in Florida when my dad would be sick. I mean, she was there when my dad had his open heart surgery, his bladder cancer, his rectum cancer. I mean, she was there. She'd come with my brother 3 hours away and spend time with us, and and things like that. So she really truly got the essence, even though we're just wacky, crazy Puerto Ricans, she knows our hearts, and she knows our true essence of who we truly are is love. And that's one thing we can all agree is my family. We have lots of love, and we know how to come united when we need to. So I love you, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you. And Heather said something here.
Heather's here. Woo!
Yeah.
I remember that time of
the snowstorm back then.
Snowstorms. I was in South Carolina.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
End of lifetime in his funeral. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. That was I was blessed to be able to leave that Friday night, and actually, I'm in mountain zone. I had to go to Seattle. I had to go to Pacific zone to go pick up that, and then go from there to Michigan, Detroit, then Detroit to Syracuse. And I made it there by 10 o'clock in the morning, their time. So it was a crazy time. But again, I'm thankful for Jules. I may not see her, spend time with her often, but it's just so peaceful and joyful that we can just look back and it's just the love, it just really it is. So
you ready for final stories, and then
yeah, sure.
All that. So my fifth one goes back to high school. There's his name is Coach Q, and he's a musician. I believe he was in Vietnam, I believe. Yeah, I
Oh,
think it was Vietnam. And he was a wrestling coach and a football coach. And I've done some work for the company that he works for over the years. And I did actually was honored with his son's wedding, Josh, in 2015. And there's something that rings in my head more than others, is that something that I didn't even know about, right? When I was in the weight room and all of that, you know, going through all of training and stuff for football, is that I just showed up different to him. You know, that it's like he goes, I always knew you had it in you to go more, go further. And it's like it's just amazing about how when a coach can see that in somebody, that person's going to show up and be something in the world, whatever it might be. They don't know what it is, but they can know that before it actually happens. And I'm truly blessed for him and his wife and his family. And just by that instills into me that it's always ringing in my head that I have to make sure that these people know that I I took what they said and I did great with it in the world, right? Is that I'm grateful and honored that that person mentored and coached me without me even realizing it, so to speak, right? That they were just doing what they're doing when I'm in high school football. But to him, it came out, you know, years ago or years later that, you know, he goes, I always knew that there was something about you that you were going to rise and do things in the world. And there's nothing that words can say that, you know, it's something I'm inspired always by and reminded of, and I just don't want to let people down, right?
yeah.
So that's always ringing in my head that I got to keep moving, I got to keep going, I got to keep taking risks, and I got to keep being the difference, be the standard in my industry, and to do it without any regret, fear, risk, just go.
Well, uh, when my mom died, we didn't have a funeral. It was very cut and dry. It was very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of one story of my mom had issues and my mom had things, and I mean I love her, and I release all those things, and I love her, and I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
But there was times I had other moms step in when my mom wasn't available, and one time was after my mom left me with my brothers and sisters, and we went over to my dad's house. My dad used to beat me when we were younger, like literally beat the heck out of me. Okay. And I love my dad. I'm in a better place with him now. But at 14 years old, when he just decides to beat the hell out of me, I ended up not going home. I was scared. I was angry. I was upset. And I had a friend of mine's mom take me in for 3 months. And this woman, I was so angry. I mean, she would let me take her dishes and throw them against the wall so that I could take my anger out because I was just so angry.
Yeah.
I mean, because my mom left me. My mom left me. My mom died to me then. I mean, she left me, and she left me with my dad who she used to have call him to beat the shit out of me when she didn't want to beat the shit out of me. So, I mean, I was just very angry at 14 years old.
Yeah.
And so she took the time to actually, and I grew up I was born in Long Island. She actually took the time to get my social security number for me. And because I had one, I just didn't know how to get it. She went and filed, and this is back before, the internet. This is back in 1980, I think in 1980, okay?
Right.
She went ahead and did the necessary paperwork to actually find out where to send for my birth certificate and got me my birth certificate. And she took me in, and it's funny because she has 3 sons and a daughter. And it's funny because I had my Long Island accent so heavy then. So her daughter she talks like a Long Islander, and she picked it up from me in the 3 months I lived at their house. But, she was like a mom to me, and I really appreciate the fact there was just a few people that saw that, and I spoke to somebody that heard my story, part of my story in Clubhouse, and they said, Lynn, with all the statistics, you truly should have been a bad girl. You should have been in jail. You should have, I had enough anger to kill somebody. Truly, I did. I mean, I had enough in my life that I don't want to sit here and cry for a second, but I had enough that there was many times I wish I wasn't living anymore. Truly,
Wow.
Seriously, I just had so much. And I'm just thankful. It just only took a couple people in my life that realized that I was a better person than most people would give me. And, I'm very thankful for that. And I think that's why I love and give now, and to laugh, because if I didn't laugh myself out of the freaking paper bag, and, George Carlin and all the comedians and all these things for laughter, I truly would, I don't even know where I'd be right now. I really sincerely wouldn't know where to be. And that's why it saddens me when people are sad and really have a hard time in life. And I'm like, I don't want to tell my story, say, look at me. I don't pity you, but I just want the trajectory of them, and I'm not going to lie, because there's some days like I'm going to be raw and vulnerable here. Saturday before our show, I was in a very deep depression, Brian.
Wow.
And it took everything for me to get out. I wasn't connected with you. When you even said, Lynn, you weren't even playing around or whatever with us. It took everything for me to just show up. It truly did.
Okay.
And so, those are hard things for me to say, but I've got to feel those sometimes. It's humble, it's whatever. But it truly is sometimes very difficult to get out of your own way. But I'm grateful I did. I'm grateful that I have this. I'm grateful that I'm doing a show with you. I'm grateful that you see the good in me, because some days I feel like I'm just not adequate enough. So I thank you so much, Brian, for just
we all have that, and if we're not willing to admit it, or we don't like the sound of it or whatever, well, that might be something to check in on, because all of us have our stuff. All of us have good days, bad days, whatever. I get that. Some days are harder to come out of than others. Like if your mind is negative, to pull it out. It's not easy, but is it possible? Yes, but it has to be a choice first.
It is, but I'm just saying, I thank you so much for having me show up every day. It's a blessing, and it just only takes the few right people in your life to realize the reflection of one another to do the things we do. And I have tears of joy right now, because that's how much it means to me. Yeah. And, I thank you, because I love these deep conversations. I just truly haven't had a human conversation like this in a while. So to do it publicly and being vulnerable is a good feeling. It truly is.
That's an indicator too for everybody that's tracking with us and watching us. People need to hear your story 100%, Heather. Absolutely. All of us have a story, but none of us, we minimize it or we marginalize it. Just like when somebody says, it's like, oh, I don't have any good stories. It's like, but when you're around the right people, you do, and you don't even have to think about them, right? We all have stories. What gets in the way, though, is that they have to look a certain way. Or what if it doesn't impact people? Or what if it's not great in their eyes? Well, it's your story. Who cares? So,
right.
But and that is something that Lynn went right there with the deepness and the vulnerability that is so special in life, but yet so rare, but also though something to look at for each of us. Why don't we go there? Why don't we go deep, knowing that we can get so much fulfillment, joy, release, freedom?
Yeah, and sometimes when my tears come out when I'm telling a story, it's sad to me, because I do know other people that had it that way, but are still stuck that way. And at being 55 and them being around my age, it saddens me for them not to wake up before they pass.
Correct.
So anyways, I know we have an action step here, and then we have an announcement for everybody. And
so the action step for today is, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from liking or not liking others? So just check in for yourself. We'll spend a minute or two tomorrow.
Wait. I want to break up, Heather, before you leave. We're going to be at different hours tomorrow.
Yep.
I definitely want you to know that. Please say yes, that I know you got that message. If not, I'll message you privately. But anyways.
Yep. So the biggest lessons you've learned, liking or not liking others. So just some things. Be tracking yourselves and be like, okay, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from people that you like and people that you don't like? Because I'm sure that there's ones that stand out. And dare I say, the more painful, non-liking ones are probably going to stand out more than the positive ones, right? Because there was some pain involved. There was something you had to overcome. There might have been heartbreak. But they're also, though, things that you carry with you for the rest of your life if you take them on seriously. So, and then tomorrow, Lynn, you want to pop that up there?
Yes.
So tomorrow we're going to have, it's only going to be one day, but we have a time change for tomorrow because I have a commitment that I have to be a part of all day for storytelling and narrative. So for tomorrow's show, we're going to be going on a little bit early. So 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. 9 o'clock Mountain, and then 8 o'clock Pacific. So hopefully you can join us. And if you can't, please catch the recording. Please, once we send out the link in the post today, set a reminder, that kind of thing, and you can have it in your news feed, and you can save it once it comes across on your phone or device.
I got to remember to change the time too when I do that today.
Just like when you schedule your shows, it's like, how come that post didn't go out?
I know. That was definitely it. But then you also were too kind not to say, "Hey, Lynn, where's the link?" Oh, shoot. My backup. You were my backup. You messed up my backup. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for being here. You guys have a way of just having me be vulnerable, and I thank you for that, because I guess when I do that, I know somebody needs to hear it. So
find somebody you love, share more stories.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, Brian, for just doing this, and you're awesome. So hold on a second.
For everybody watching.
Have a good one.